What's going on, guys, and welcome back to my next video in my Should You Play class series for all of the classes moving from vanilla into the Burning Crusade. As we know, the Burning Crusade is just a couple of months away, so I'm working my way through every single class. The only two we have left to do is Warlock and Rogue. So this one, we're going to be focusing on the Warlock, which is a lot of people's favorite caster class moving into the Burning Crusade. And in this video, we're going to cover everything that changed from vanilla moving into TBC. We're going to go over each specialization, PvE and PvP, and why Warlocks just absolutely dominate raids, dungeons, and arenas and feel like a god class in the Burning Crusade. So without further ado, let's jump into every change for Warlocks moving from vanilla into TBC. So TBC completely elevated the Warlock class, right? If you're a Warlock player in vanilla, you know that your rotation in raids is mainly just spamming Shadow Bolt, and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't change that much moving into TBC, but the difference is you do a lot more damage and you have crazy AoE and you're just god tier at arena if you play Affliction. So there's a few things that you've gotten new as the Warlock class, right? So we've gotten new spell ranks and smoother rotations. There's a lot less filler time. You have a lot more consistent damage, I would say, in the Burning Crusade. You got Fell Armor, which is a new buff. Kind of replaces your Demon Armor or your Demon Skin buff. This is going to give you spell damage and a health regen buff. Your Soul Shards have been changed a little bit. They're easier to manage with new Soul Shard generation and storage improvements. You've gotten improved pets, right? Now you get the addition of the Felguard pet if you're Demonology, which is like a tanky arms warrior style pet, and your Succubus and Imps AI has been improved moving into the Burning Crusade. Curses have been reworked a little bit. You got Curse of Shadows and Elements have been combined into Curse of the Elements, which simplifies debuffing for you. Demonic Sacrifice is still strong, but it's no longer mandatory. There's a lot more viable pet builds going into TBC. Affliction and Destruction both gain new talents that make them pretty competitive, and your stat scaling has definitely been fixed, right? Spell power, hit, and crit are now itemized properly. As we know, just in general, moving into the Burning Crusade, the gear is itemized a little bit better than vanilla, so you're going to have a little bit easier of a time gearing. So as a result of this, Warlocks go from kind of a niche DPS in vanilla to one of the strongest DPS classes in the Burning Crusade in PvE and in PvP. So for the next part of the video, we're going to be talking about Destruction Warlocks, and we're going to start off with PvE, right? Destruction Warlocks in the Burning Crusade are a top-tier single-target DPS. You have great AoE as well with Seed of Corruption, but you are just absolutely top-tier in single-target DPS as Destruction. You focus basically on just raw blasting and burst damage, right? Shadow Bolt, Immolate, Conflag, Incinerate. These are going to be your rotations depending on which build you decide to play. You can go Shadow Destruction, or you can go Fire Destruction. There's two ways to play it. I played Shadow Destruction back in the Burning Crusade Classic the first time, and I absolutely loved it. The Shadow build is generally better early on because of the raid debuffs and the synergy you get with Shadow Priest, but, you know, Destruction Warlock in general scales incredibly well with the gear and the crit that you're going to be getting on the gear later on and throughout the entire expansion. It is great in every single raid tier, from Karazhan, SSC, TK, Hygel, BT, Sunwell. It is just top tier pretty much the entire expansion. Warlocks often compete for top DPS on the meters in every single raid. I'm not kidding when I say this. I'm not glazing the Warlock class. Anyone who knows anything about TBC knows that Warlocks just absolutely pump. Now, as for PvP Destruction, though, it's kind of a glass cannon spec. It can be done, and it can be fun if played right with the right comp. You get Shadow Burn, Conflag, Death Coil. You can kind of delete people if you play it right, but it lacks that sustain that Affliction gives you, and it makes, you know, you're pretty easily punished as Destruction. Personally, when I did PvP, when I did arenas on my Warlock, I fell in love with Affliction Lock in arenas. I thought it was one of the most fun things I've ever played in arena, and I came from playing double Rogue. So playing Affliction Lock felt just, oh my god, you're so tanky, you have so much sustain. It felt really good. But Destruction in PvP, I don't know. It has high burst potential, it's fun, and it can be played, but it requires a lot of good positioning, and you really can get punished pretty easily. So, in summary, Destruction Warlocks are, you know, they're best for the players who just want to be top DPS and have a pretty simple rotation. Whether you play the Shadow spec or the Fire spec, it's very simple, and you just scale incredibly with gear. You are going to be topping the meters with no problems. It is gear dependent, though. So, in the beginning, you're going to be good, you're going to be a top DPS, but you're not going to be... It's not going to feel like what I'm making it sound like, but as you start to gear, you're going to be like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Those massive Shadow Bolt crits are pretty incredible. So yeah, that's who's going to want to play Destruction Warlock. Next on the list, we're going to talk about Affliction Warlocks, right? And in PvE, you know, Affliction is definitely not a top tier DPS spec. It's the dot spec, right? With your Shadow Bolt filler. You're going to just maintain all of your dots and kind of spam Shadow Bolts here and there. I guess you can play it if you're not in a super sweaty guild. Your core abilities are going to be obviously Corruption, Unstable Affliction, Curse of Agony, Siphon Life. It's definitely a little bit stronger in early tiers because it's extremely mana efficient, but later on, it definitely tends to fall off. I wouldn't really suggest playing it. I would just play Demo or Destruction if I was, you know, DPSing in raids or heroic dungeons, if I'm being completely honest. But Unstable Affliction is your signature TBC spell, right? This spell is a pretty heavy dot that basically punishes people that dispel it with a silence. So it does a ton of damage, and it's kind of hard to dispel. Not really, you know, something that is a big thing in PvE, because no one's going to be dispelling it in PvE. It's just going to be a big portion of your damage. But when we talk about PvP later on, Unstable Affliction is massive. But yeah, Affliction Warlock in PvE is consistent damage, you know, even while you're moving, so you can have kind of like a mobile Warlock DPS build. You know, like I keep coming back to this, that you can do damage with it. It's just not even going to compare to Destruction. But, you know, early on, if you want to play it, you definitely can. You bring key raid debuffs, right, like Shadow Vulnerability and Curse of Elements. It has strong synergy with Shadow Priest, again, and you have that mutual mana sustain that you both get. As for PvP, though, an absolute nightmare to play against Affliction Warlocks. They are god tier in PvP. You have your dots, your fears, Unstable Affliction, again, which if they dispel it, they get silenced. So they kind of got to choose between taking a bunch of damage or dispelling this debuff. It's really good, right? You have that amazing control from Fear, Death Coil, and Howl of Terror. You're extremely durable with Drain Life, Siphon Life, and Soul Link if you spec into that. And it just excels in long attrition fights, right? It's perfect for 2s, perfect for 3s. Warlock can be paired up with a lot of different classes in Arena, and I highly suggest it if you're a Warlock player. Affliction Lock in TBC is one of the most fun arena specs that I've ever played. So in summary, Affliction Locks are going to be great for that sustained pressure and utility player that wants to kind of pressure both opponents maybe in a 2s match in Arena, you know, and deal damage to both of them and kind of whittle them down while your teammate does whatever, either keeps you alive or does DPS, depending on who you're playing with. It's really fun for that. You don't get that flashy burst of destruction, but you definitely melt targets over time, right? It's fantastic for arenas, for BGs, and it's pretty okay in PvP as well. So if that's something that, you know, you're interested in, you might want to consider playing Affliction Warlock. Next, we're going to talk about another one of my favorite specs for Warlock is Demonology, and we're going to talk about PvE first, right? PvE Demonology Warlocks are the support like DPS hybrid spec, okay? You get access to the new Felguard pet, as you guys could see here. This is my Warlock from TBC. He's an absolute unit for both DPS and tanking adds if you need to do that while leveling and things like that. He's basically like a mini arms warrior if you want to think of it that way. You provide Demonic Pact and Soul Link, which are amazing raid buffs. You often use as a hybrid to empower other Warlocks in the raid, right? Demonic Pact is going to make those other Warlocks in your raid pump even harder. You're a solid DPS, especially in early TBC when gear is limited, and you have a very simple rotation. You're basically spamming Shadow Bolt and just micromanaging your pet, right? That's all you're pretty much doing. As for PvP though, Soul Link and your Felguard are pretty tanky and hard combo to kill, right? You're extremely tanky because of Soul Link. Your Felguard's tanky. He's cleaving around. He's intercepting people, charging them. You know, it gives you a little bit of a stun when he does intercept people, so that's nice for some control. It's a great dueling spec, right? Definitely performs a little bit better in 2s or duels, one-on-ones, than it would in 3s or 5s. You can play it, but it's really solid in Battlegrounds, especially while you're farming your honor gear. Demonology is a lot of fun. It's not as bursty as Destro or as oppressive as Affliction is, but it's very balanced and definitely viable to play. So in summary, you know, Demonology Warlocks are that hybrid between damage and durability. You're kind of like a tanky caster when you play Demo. It's a great choice for new Warlock players or players who just love that pet gameplay, and you want to play Warlock. Demonology is really solid for that, but it becomes more support oriented in the later TBC raids. You're really kind of just there to buff up your other Warlocks and your mages and things like that. So what's the final verdict? Should you play Warlock in the Burning Crusade Classic this time around? Well, the pros for Warlock are that they're a top tier DPS in pretty much every single raid tier. They're excellent in PvP in all brackets. They're extremely self-sufficient with your health stones, your drains, your CC, life tap. You have multiple viable builds that you can use in raid and in PvP. You have high survivability with Soul Link and Fell Armor, all of these awesome things that you get, all the new utility that Warlocks do get. And you just, again, you're just an incredible utility class. But some of the cons are that it's kind of annoying to manage soul shards sometimes. Playing Destruction Warlock does require some really good positioning, and you know, if you're playing Affliction Lock in Arena or PvP, it does take some time for your damage to ramp up. In the beginning, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't as good as I thought, but then once you learn how to play the class, you're going to be like, wow, this is pretty good. So I don't know if I would consider that a con, but I did jot it down here. But overall, it's a competitive class. Every raid wants Warlocks, but not many people play Warlocks. I don't know, maybe this time around you're going to see a lot of Warlocks rolling around, so we'll have to see, right? But honestly, play a Warlock if you want to dominate both PvE and PvP. You could do everything on a Warlock. You want to play a caster, you know. I've always loved the Warlock class and the class fantasy behind Warlock. It's one of my favorite classes in the Burning Crusade. So yeah, there's so many options to play, different specs and things like that you can enjoy as Warlock. So if any of this sounds good to you, I hope that I was able to make up your mind and help you decide to play a Warlock in the Burning Crusade this time around. So if I did, like the video, come follow me over on Kick at kick.com/hammerdance. We stream Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Subscribe to the channel if you love Classic WoW just as much as me. But anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.